The philosophy that brought Herbert Spencer so much recognition and acclaim was Darwinism, the notion of evolution and the survival of the fittest. Spencer extended it far beyond Darwin's own work. Interest in Darwin's theory of evolution was intense in the United States, and Darwin's ideas had been eagerly accepted. Evolutionary theory was embraced not only in universities and scholarly societies, but also in popular magazines and even some religious publications. It is interesting to note that support for the theory of evolution was much stronger in America in the 19th century than it is today. Surveys show consistently that as many as 1/3 of Americans do not support the idea of evolution, a level of rejection that is much higher than in any other developed nation. But in the days of Herbert Spencer, the notion of evolution was well accepted by the time Spencer came to New York. Spencer argued that the development of all aspects of the universe was evolutionary, including human character and social institutions. In Spencer's utopian view, if the principle of survival of the fittest were allowed to operate freely, then only the best would survive. Therefore, human perfection was irreversible as long as no action was taken to interfere with the natural order of things. Individualism and a laissez-faire economic system were vital, whereas governmental attempts to regulate business and industry and welfare, even subsidies for education, housing, and the poor, were opposed. People and organizations were left alone to develop themselves and society in their own ways, just as other living species were left to develop and adapt to their natural environments. Any assistance from the state would interfere with the natural evolutionary process. People, programs, businesses, or institutions that could not adapt were unfit for survival and should be allowed to perish or become extinct for the better of society as a whole. If government continued to support poorly functioning enterprises, then these enterprises would endure, ultimately weakening society and violating the basic law of nature that only the strongest and most fit shall survive. Again, Spencer's idea was that by enduring that only the best survived, society could eventually achieve perfection. This message was compatible with America's individualistic spirit, and the phrases survival of the fittest and the struggle for existence quickly became part of the national consciousness. Spencer formulated a system he called synthetic philosophy, which is the idea that knowledge and experience can be explained in terms of evolutionary principles. Spencer's ideas were published in a series of 10 books between 1860 and 1897. They were hailed by many leading scholars of the time as works of genius. Although Darwin appreciated Spencer's work, he did not like him personally. He quoted, "I think that he was extremely egotistical." 2 of the volumes on synthetic philosophy constitute the Principles of Psychology, published first in 1855 and later used by William James as a textbook for the first psychology course he taught at Harvard. In his book, Spencer discussed the notion that the mind exists in its present form because of past and continuing efforts to adapt to various environments. He emphasized the adaptive nature of nervous and mental processes and wrote that an increasing complexity of experiences and hence of behavior is part of the normal evolutionary process. The organism needs to adapt to its environment if it is to survive.